Well, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure folks will continue rolling in as we get started here. But my name is Jennifer Henshaw. I'm the Vice President of the Prairies in the North with Restaurants Canada. Here with us today, we have Brienne Bennett, the Senior Waste Management Coordinator with Waste Stewardship and Recycling with the Ministry of Environment in Saskatchewan. So big thank you to Brienne for joining us today as well. Here at Restaurants Canada, as you know, we understand that in an ever-changing world of sustainability policy and expanding extended producer responsibility programs, it's critical that you have the most up-to-date and accurate information as it becomes available, so you have a clear picture of what compliance looks like and you have the information you need for your business. So that's why today we're pleased to be holding an informative webinar in partnership with the Saskatchewan government on recent key regulatory changes to the household packaging and paper stewardship program regulations. They came into effect on March 31st, 2023. So we're going to bring you up to speed on it. Just to flag, this webinar is also being recorded if you wanted to revisit it on a later date. And for those folks who can't join us today as well. And if you want to send in your questions, we will have a whole Q&A session at the end of Brie's presentation as well. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Brie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Everything's ready. So again, thank you for inviting me to speak today, and thank you for joining us. I'll just dive right into it. So after a regulatory review and red tape reduction review, as well as stakeholder engagement in 2021 and 2022, the ministry has approved the new household packaging and paper regulations, which Jennifer mentioned came into force on March 31st, 2023. The ministry has also developed and posted product stewardship program guidelines on our website to clarify certain clauses in the regulations and provide additional details about what the ministry would expect in a program plan. Producers, or more likely a producer responsibility organization, has 180 days to submit a program plan to the ministry, and the deadline is September 27th this year. So today I'll be discussing the changes to the regulations, but I will not yet be able to discuss what the future program will look like. The details of the program, as well as the transition timelines, are not yet known, as these will be proposed in a program plan. Multi-Material Stewardship Western, who is the current producer responsibility organization for the program, has drafted a product stewardship program plan and is currently out consulting on that draft program plan. I believe they are accepting feedback until I think August 7th, but don't quote me on that. It's early August. So we've seen some challenges with the existing shared responsibility model over the last few years, with changing global markets for plastics and evolving waste streams. Municipalities have faced challenges with funding their programs and marketing their recyclables. Also, the existing program does not provide opportunities for obligated producers and businesses to influence program costs or efficiencies. So based on engagement feedback and what other jurisdictions are doing or will be doing in the near future, the regulations will shift the shared responsibility program to one where producers assume full operational and financial responsibility. So this means that the responsibility for developing a province-wide program, providing recycling services, providing education and communication, and marketing materials to buyers will shift from municipalities to producers. The list of materials collected by the program will be based on the regulations and standardized across the province. And while developing the program plan, the producer responsibility organization is required to consult with those who are expected to implement the program, bear the cost of implementing the program, and are impacted by the program. The producer responsibility organization will also be required to ensure a smooth transition from the existing model to the new model. And again, the transition timelines will be proposed in their program plan. So in this presentation, I've tried to follow the order that the clauses appear in the regulations. So if you have them in front of you, which you likely don't, but if you do, you can follow along. So section 2.1 is definitions. The regulations do include a few new terms, including separate definitions for collection rate, recycling rate, and diversion rate. So this will come up a little later on when we discuss targets. But collection rate and recycling rate are pretty straightforward. Diversion rate refers to packaging and paper diverted from landfills. So this includes materials that are diverted by recycling, combined with materials diverted through energy recovery. The regulations also define recycle, which includes composting, and it also defines residence and refers to both single unit dwellings as well as multi-unit apartments and condos. The regulations change the term program operator to producer responsibility organization. Now, while the regulations do not stipulate specific requirements for producer responsibility organizations, the product stewardship program guidelines that are posted online do specify that they are to operate as a not-for-profit organization. Additionally, if the ministry receives multiple program plan submissions, we will evaluate all plans to assess the best fit for Saskatchewan. We may also request a list of members and stakeholders who support the program plan as part of our evaluation process. So continuing with definitions, household packaging and paper products includes packaging composed of any material that is used for the containment, protection, handling, delivery, or presentation of a product. Examples of packaging materials include, but are not limited to, glass, metal, paper, boxboard, cardboard, paper fiber, and plastic, as well as bio-based plastic, or any combination of these materials. So that includes multi-material packaging like foil juice pouches that are paper, metal, and plastic combined. Household packaging and paper products also includes packaging-like products that are ordinarily disposed of after a single use or short-term use. So this refers to products that are used and reused for a short period of time, typically less than 5 years, before being disposed of or reaching the end of their useful lifespan. So examples of this includes food containers, plates, bowls, and cups that are purchased as products, as well as foil and wraps, flexible zipper bags, moving boxes, and plant pots and trays. It does not include single-use items that are not used to package things. Therefore, single-use items like cutlery, straws, and stir sticks are not included in the regulations. Finally, household packaging and paper products includes paper of any description, including paper purchased as products, such as greeting cards, calendars, and newspapers, and that has not changed from the previous regulations. The definition for household packaging and paper products does not include beverage containers prescribed in the Environmental Management and Protection Act, containers that are part of operating reuse programs. So for example, refillable beer bottles has their own collection program. Doesn't include containers from products prescribed in the waste paint management regulations, the used petroleum and antifreeze regulations, or the household hazardous waste regulations. It doesn't include health, hygiene, or safety products that could become unsafe or unsanitary to reuse or recycle, but it does include the packaging for these products. Finally, it does not include bound reference books, literary books, and textbooks. Section 3, the determination of a producer. Now, the definition of producer has not changed in purpose, but it has been rewritten for clarification. So if a business or organization supplies packaging to consumers in Saskatchewan and is the brand owner resident in Canada, that business is the obligated producer as the brand holder. So for example, Starbucks. If a business or organization is resident in Saskatchewan and imports packaging for which there is no brand holder resident in Canada, that business is the obligated producer as the importer. And if these two situations do not apply, then the obligated producer is the retailer. For franchises, there are no changes to the franchise policy. If a business has franchisees in Saskatchewan, the obligated producer is the franchisor. We also included marketplace sellers and marketplace facilitators. A marketplace facilitator is someone who operates an online consumer marketplace that lists or advertises the marketplace seller's products and may provide for the physical distribution of these products. So for example, Amazon would be considered a marketplace facilitator. For the sake of this regulation, if a retailer is determined to be the producer based on the hierarchy, but they are a marketplace seller, it is the marketplace facilitator that is the obligated producer. So in this example, Amazon would be the obligated producer as the marketplace facilitator. Section 6.4 talks about business exemptions. So a producer or a business is exempt from participating in the program and paying fees if the business generates less than 1 million in gross annual revenue in Saskatchewan. This is a change from the previous exemption threshold of $2 million. A producer can also be exempt if they supply or distribute less than 1 ton of household packaging and paper products in Saskatchewan annually. This has not changed from the previous regulations. And now there is no longer an exemption for businesses who operate a single point of retail sale, which means that these businesses will now be required to participate in the program unless they qualify for the 1 million or 1 ton exemptions. Charitable organizations are also exempt from participating in the program, and this is also not changed from the previous regulations. We also have a new onus of proof clause. So a business who is not participating in the program by claiming an exemption may be required to provide proof that it is exempt from compliance. This clause was added to strengthen our enforcement capabilities. Section 7.1 requires obligated producers to submit a product stewardship program plan. Producers are required to submit a program plan to the ministry for approval 180 days after the regulations come into force, making it due on September 27th. The program plan must comply with the regulations and the program plan guidelines. It must also include an implementation schedule for phasing in the program, including details describing the manner in which existing recycling service providers and municipal contracts, assets, and partnerships will be considered in the program. The program plan must also provide evidence of public and stakeholder consultation. Section 7.2 outlines all of the requirements for program plan. There are a number of requirements. However, many of them have not changed, so I won't go through all of them, but I will highlight what is new and noteworthy. So the program plan should provide details on a province-wide collection system that provides public access in all regions of Saskatchewan that is convenient and consistent. It must include the criteria that will be used in determining service types and service levels for different types of residences, like single-family homes versus multifamily apartments, and in different communities of varying sizes in different geographic locations. It must include the rationale for the proposed collection system and how remote, Northern, and First Nations communities will be included in the program, and how the program will work collaboratively with these communities to provide access to waste diversion. The program should also provide details on how collection services in the program will be coordinated with other municipal waste services, like garbage and organics collection days and cart placement locations. Section 7.2 also includes details about the material categories and targets. The regulations define the categories of packaging and paper to be used for reporting purposes. So paper, metal, and glass are not new categories. However, plastic is now broken down into 3 subcategories. rigid plastic, flexible plastic, and bio-based plastic. And bio-based plastic is broken further into compostable plastics and not compostable plastics. The guidelines provide further clarifications on these terms. And finally, multi-material packaging means packaging made from any combination of these materials. The program plan must include a description of how each category will be managed by the program according to the waste management hierarchy. And this hierarchy is established in the guidelines. So they define each tier in the hierarchy as reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, dispose, and provide additional information on what is expected for reporting purposes for each. The program plan must also include targets set by the producer responsibility organization for overall recycling rate and diversion rate for the program, as well as recycling rates and diversion rates for each product category. Targets should be proposed for each year and improve over time. And targets should be ambitious yet achievable, and they will be finalized in collaboration with the ministry. Section 8 is the program review. This is a requirement in many of our other stewardship regulations. A review of the program will be conducted every 5 years by both the producer responsibility organization and internally by the ministry. Product stewardship program review guidelines have been developed and are available upon request. And these reviews are used to address some key questions. How effective and efficient is the program? Are there ways to improve the program? And how does it contribute or support the waste diversion goals in Saskatchewan's solid waste management strategy? Section 11 is annual reporting. Again, I'm not going to go through all the reporting requirements, just those that are new. So for each category of packaging and paper product that I mentioned previously, as well as an aggregate amount for the program, the annual report must include the amount of material supplied to Saskatchewan by producers, collected by the program, recycled by the program, recovered for energy, and disposed of in a landfill if need be. Also, for each category, the annual report must include the collection rate, recycling rate, and diversion rate. The report should also include a comparison of the performance for the year against the targets set out in the program plan, the number and location of collection services by service type and any changes from the previous reporting period, the level of public awareness of the program, and a description of the efforts taken to reduce environmental impacts throughout the life cycle of the product or packaging. In spring 2022, the ministry engaged stakeholders on draft regulations, and based on the feedback we received, we did not include some proposed changes in the final regulations. So as I mentioned previously, we did not include single-use and disposable products. While the new regulations do include packaging-like products, we heard that from many stakeholders that single-use and disposable products are very difficult to recycle and typically considered contamination in the waste stream. So a comprehensive list of the specific items that are going to be included in the program will be developed by the ministry in collaboration with the producer responsibility organization. We also did not include mandatory registration of exempt businesses. The initial draft regulations had proposed requiring all exempt businesses to register and provide evidence of meeting exemption criteria. We did hear that this requirement would significantly increase the administrative burden for small businesses and the producer responsibility organization. So as an alternative, we included the reverse onus clause in section 6. So if a business is identified as potentially being non-compliant, that they are required to provide proof that they are indeed exempt from the regulation. And the producer responsibility organization will be developing guidelines on what that proof looks like. We also did not include public spaces and schools from the collection program. We heard that the waste collected from pilot programs in public spaces in other jurisdictions is highly contaminated. It has very low recycling rates, requires a greenhouse gas intensive process, and can contain hazardous materials. We also heard that the waste collected from schools is mostly institutional waste and not from households. So we did not include either of these two in the regulations. Finally, we removed the requirement for non-financial audits. During engagement, we heard that non-financial audits of reported program data, so that's essentially audits proving that the items are indeed collected and recycled. We heard that these audits are very time-consuming, costly, and add little value. So as an alternative, the ministry included a requirement in the 5-year program review guidelines, requiring the producer responsibility organization to provide a description of the processes undertaken to verify the accuracy of the data collected in reference to the performance indicators. So those are the key changes in the new regulations. As I said, Multi-Material Stewardship Western is developing a program plan, or they have developed a program plan, a draft one, and they are in the process of consulting with stakeholders and municipalities. And then they will submit their plan to the ministry for our review in September. And there may be some back and forth at that point to ensure that the program plan meets all the requirements of the regulation. And then the new program could potentially begin its phased-in implementation in 2024. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brie. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We do have one. I'm not sure if you can speak to it, which is what cutlery can still be used besides wood, since wood is not an option?
Well, Saskatchewan doesn't have any regulations on cutlery. So that would be the federal regulations, I'm assuming that they're talking about, that are banning plastic cutlery. I was not aware that wood was not allowed in the new federal regulations.
Okay. To whoever I hope asked that question, I hope that that provides some clarity. I think you just kind of spoke to it. The other question I had was on the kind of documentation that would need to be submitted on the exemption piece. But did I hear you right that that's still in the works for what that would look like? I'm just trying to understand whether that would look like.
Yeah, the producer responsibility organization, if it happens to be Multi-Material Stewardship Western, which I think it's likely that it would be them, they would develop the requirements for that piece.
Do we know what other provinces have used as a benchmark? Like what's in consideration? Is it like financial documents or?
Well, I guess it depends on the province. Manitoba does require everyone to register. So simply by not registering for the program, you're out of compliance in Manitoba. In BC, I think they have compliance officers that will conduct audits of a business, and they will go in and ask for like financial documents or sales documents that say like, yes, I send packaging out, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. If there's any, are there any final call for questions? Anything coming out? Any hot burning questions? This webinar, again, as I mentioned, will also be recorded and available to the folks who missed it today. Last call for questions, kind of line of questions, if that's okay. All right. Seeing no more questions, give you guys the gift of time and Brie the gift of time. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll stay tuned for our next step on program plan development and any future consultations we'll no doubt be participating in. But thank you so much for your time. And
sorry, before we go, I would encourage those to visit the Multi-Material Stewardship Western's website. They do have their draft program plan posted online, and they are accepting feedback until early August.
Perfect. Good flag. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll end it there. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.